subscribe or else.
Hey guys, and welcome back to Lost Bits, the series where we explore the unused, altered, and unseen content in gaming. I've almost lost count of how many Lost Bits videos I've made on Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach, but this truly is the game that just keeps on giving with unused content. If this is your first video here, I highly recommend checking out my previous videos on Security Breach. We went over a whole bunch of really cool unused content from scrapped areas, unused models, menus, and more. Anyways, for this, what I assume is to be the last Security Breach video, at least for a while, we'll be taking a deep dive into the survival mode that was scrapped from this game. It's honestly really cool, so I hope you enjoyed this video. If you do, a like below is always super appreciated, and with all of that said, let's dive on back for some more Security Breach Lost Bits. Alright, first a quick disclaimer, this video is being made in early February of 2022, so although all of this is currently not included in the game, the developers have stated that more content will be coming, and we've already discussed an unused version of the menu which already includes this mode there, as well as DLC. As such, it's entirely possible, and likely, that this mode will be added in the future, so please do keep that in mind if in a few months all this gets stuffed back into the game. Anyways, so in my previous video, I mentioned an unused menu here in Security Breach that offers up a new option, Extras. And one of the options that's offered in this extra submenu is a scrap survival mode. Clicking this leads you to yet another screen, and this here would allow you to customize a run through the game with various options. First here, you can adjust difficulty level, giving more animatronic encounters the higher you set the level. Then I guess how many real-world minutes would make one in-game hour go by, and I guess this is a remnant of the scrapped timing mechanic we discussed in my previous videos, where time would actively progress instead of only progressing when certain points are reached in the game's plot. Then here, you could also choose how many lives you could have for a given run, either 1, 10, or unlimited. And then lastly here, we can see a whole bunch of symbols that can be swapped around from a whole bunch of icons, including Helpy, Monty, a flashlight, and more. Now at first, I thought this was a way to set up various options in the game, such as this plush-looking one enabling the scrapped random plush jump scares that I mentioned in a previous video. I assume having charge stations accessible, what looks like having the flashlight, and having Freddy accessible at all in the run. But it turns out that these actually don't directly work like this, and it seems like these actually are used to set up a random seed for a run through the survival mode. Now, if you're unfamiliar with randomizers like this, basically a seed is a unique run that can be replicated if all the symbols are the same. So for example, if you got set up in a really cool randomized run you liked and you wanted a buddy to have the same conditions, you would tell them to put in the exact same symbol order. Essentially, every unique string of symbols here should result in its own unique randomized set of conditions. And here, if you want a completely randomized run, this menu also lets you shuffle up all of the options if you're feeling lucky. There's also one other option on this menu, to spawn all possible locations, but we'll come back to that in a bit. Now, once you proceed from this menu, you don't just start the game like normal, you actually get loaded into the first security office that you encounter in the game, in front of the large computer setup and a button to skip what I assume would be an intro or short little cutscene that would kind of explain what's going on as it changes to a warning screen for a bit. Well, this intro to this mode is still very much incomplete here as it is. First of all, although the button with the dev skip text above it is clearly seen, there's a small problem here. As it is right now, you can't even move in this mode at all. And this is quite a problem, as after the short and silent cutscene here, the screen will freeze for whatever reason, and then will prompt you to press any key to continue. Again, we're definitely missing some context here with whatever we're supposed to see or hear before moving on, but as soon as you proceed, our pal Chica starts coming in, and since we can't move normally, I'm sure you can figure out the rest. Now normally this is where we would hit a wall and give up, but nah, we ain't no quitters here. By using the debug mode I detailed in my last video, we can simply toggle this option which miraculously gives us our movement back. And now we can really explore the rest of this mode, at least to an extent. As you can see here, it's incredibly dark in this mode, so much so that it's basically impossible to see where you're going without a flashlight. So you'll be seeing me disable the lighting effects quite a bit in this video just so we can see things a little bit better. That said, this darkness also makes some parts of the pizzaplex look super cool. Like, man, that looks awesome. Anywho, let's get back to the mode itself. Basically, for the survival mode, in short, several presents would be scattered around the pizzaplex, and you would have to seek them out and find party passes to unlock basically every area outside the main lobby in the game. So this means you would need party passes to unlock areas like Roxy Raceway, the arcade, as well as several other areas that you can normally just access without a party pass. This is much different than just Gator Golf and Phaser Blast like you do in the normal run of the game. Additionally, different presents, I guess, would have different rarities or something, as when you get a game over in this mode, a score screen is displayed, breaking down how many of each color of present a player collected, and also a breakdown of how many points were earned. So basically, the goal seems pretty simple. You'd have to open presents to get points, try to find party passes to open up new areas, find your way to other security office areas to increase your security level, and then rinse and repeat to try and get as many points as possible. And as you first enter the main lobby in this mode and the time starts ticking, the game appears to outline just how many presents there are to collect, so I guess there is a maximum score you can get if you do collect them all. And as a side note, this idea of unlocking various areas with party passes seen here in the survival mode also seems to be what was seen in one of the preview trailers for this game, as there, Gregory had 2 party passes at once, something you can't normally have in the final game. So maybe the game was once less linear and you could actually choose which areas you wanted to access and in what order. Anyways, back to the survival mode here. Depending on what your seed was on the menu, the gifts found around the pizzaplex would be in different places. To quickly exemplify this, with this seed, this present can be seen on this here bench, and with this seed, it's just somewhere else. Unfortunately, the mode doesn't seem to be fully functional here, as although I'm free to roam around to my heart's content here, the ability to actually open presents, for whatever reason, doesn't work. And that's not all either. I was unable to save, enter hiding spots, and although I could call Freddy, the game didn't let me hop on in, even if I forced the game to let me with debug mode. As such, in this current state, I wasn't able to really normally play this mode as it was intended, and as such, since I wasn't able to get any party passes to use to get to the other areas, without using the debug mode to fly around, we'd be pretty stuck. Additionally, it looks like several of the doors around the pizzaplex also had their security levels changed. Like here at where you normally start the game, these doors already require like a level 6 security clearance. So it really seems like you'd have to go back and forth throughout the pizzaplex quite a bit. At first, I thought maybe the security levels for these doors would also be randomized depending on the seed, as it would add an extra layer of shaking things up. But no matter the seed I would set up on the menu, the security doors seem to have the same new security level. This actually goes for a lot of the things with all the symbols here. I expected more things to be randomized, like having a flashlight, being able to have Freddy, etc. But I tried numerous different seeds, and basically besides the gift spawn locations, not much else really seemed to change. I never could start with Freddy, a flashlight, anything like that. But although these weren't randomized, there were a few other oddities that occurred at certain time points that I was able to note. First, a few times, certainly not every time, at precisely 12:10 a.m., or once it was 12:06, Vanessa seemed to spawn above here up in the security office near the East Arcade and prize counter area. Since she only sometimes spawned in, I guess maybe she is one of those things that's randomized in a run. Anyways, from here, strangely, she just walks back and forth between either of the security doors, a few steps into the arcade, and yeah, that's about it. Well, at least for now. There's a bit more to Vanessa here, but we'll come back to that in a bit. Another thing that seems to be activated at a certain time is the power going out, as if it wasn't dark enough already. This actually seemed to happen at 12:50 a.m. every time, and then a message to find a recharge station would also pop up. After this, at 12:55, Moondrop here would start to spawn around. Sometimes he would chase me, and other times he just stood there menacingly. Well, basically at 12:50, you're given 10 in-game minutes to find a recharge station, and depending on how long an in-game hour is in real time, this is either a lot of time or not. And if you don't find a recharge station in time, well, you're basically insta-killed by Moonpal at 1 AM. And there's literally no escaping it either. You can have your back against a wall, not see him at all, and bam, off to sleep you go. Unfortunately, the recharge stations are yet another thing I wasn't able to use in this mode in its current state. So yeah, there was just no way to survive this without busting open the debug menu. Now back to the menu here, there's also the spawn all possible locations option I mentioned earlier. As you might expect, ticking off this option will of course spawn the gifts in all the locations that they could possibly appear in. Like literally all of them, constantly. Having this many presents constantly loaded in really slows down the game. I have a pretty okay PC myself, and even with disabling lighting and all that, my game certainly wasn't running at an optimal frame rate. One interesting thing I found about this is that some presents appear to spawn in areas that might reveal some slight changes in certain areas or ideas from an earlier point in development. For example, there's this gift box here that appears to be overlapping with this stack of plates. Some presents are just hovering, suggesting there was once something beneath them, and also a gift can spawn behind the door in Vanny's hideout that actually leads to this area behind the bowling segment. The door also opens here, unlike being out of order as seen in the final game. There are several other things to further suggest that this mode was being developed during an earlier point in development too. Some doors that lead to nowhere, presents that are located either in rooms that no longer exist or in areas that are no longer accessible, and most notably I think, there appears to be some party pass staff bots blocking areas that were removed from the final cut of the game. For example, the one that immediately caught my attention is that oddly, there's a staff bot blocking just this corner of the lobby. Well, if you watched my previous video, you might remember that just behind this wall, there was once a corridor that was intended to connect the main lobby to the atrium area as well as the Fazcade. To add to this, there's another one of these staff bots blocking this unassuming wall in the atrium here, and this is actually where this scrapped hallway was supposed to connect here. Now unfortunately, this was removed from the game, likely due to having all these areas loaded in, affecting game performance. But yeah, it seems like at the point in development that this survival mode was last worked on, this hallway must have been recently removed as these fellas here are still trying to block it. Furthermore to this, there's also one of these bots blocking access to a door in Pirate's Cove here. Now you can't ever go through these doors normally since Greg is banned. But once again, since there's a staff bot here, perhaps it was once a planned path as well. Then furthermore, there are some other differences in this version of the pizzaplex. Most notably to me was that several doors that aren't usable in the base game actually open here, like this door connecting the atrium to the hallway beside the daycare and lobby, as well as this door in the East Arcade. But although they are usable, I got a quick reminder as to why they were probably made out of order by the developers for the final map. There's another staff bot blocking these doors to the prize counter area, suggesting they would be usable as well, and then behind this staff bot here, I found an unused hallway I don't think I've seen anyone else talk about. Well, this door would have opened to a hallway that would have led to the Cupcake Restaurant area, but here, instead of the doors just being made out of order, this unused hallway was just sealed off behind this wall. Once again, it's too bad this hallway wasn't used, but I think it's just a really weird way to cover it up like this. So yeah, I think either there were some different ideas for getting around the areas at whatever stage of development this mode was worked on, or alternatively, there would simply be doors accessible only in survival mode that aren't in the regular mode. Another more minor change that I noticed is that none of the little Fazbear buttons appear anywhere here, including in the elevators, making them unusable just like pretty much everything else it seems. I mean, I get it's an unused mode here, yeah, but damn, they certainly made it hard to try and play normally. Now next, a few things I teased in my previous video. There are a few effects found on the debug menu that are exclusively only functional in this cut survival mode. First off is the survival item locations option on the main menu here. Well, as hinted by the name, this actually points out exactly where each present box is located near you by literally emitting a blue beam from your current location to where it is. Now this was obviously used by the developers to quickly locate where all the presents were, but also hey, it could be a pretty nifty cheat if you're stuck and can't find any more presents in this mode. And now lastly here, probably the most interesting thing that can be exclusively currently seen in the survival mode, at least I think, is that here we can fully use the otherwise unused Vanny meter that I went over in my last video. Well, this meter actually seems to work with Vanessa. For me, the meter slowly filled up, and then once full, Vanessa would break from her very short security path near the office and then start to jog somewhere. I followed her a few times, and each time she would eventually run into a wall and vanish. I could not find her at all after she went into the wall both of these times. This certainly had me scratching my head. This was quite different from what I saw shown in this gameplay clip from Maz. In Maz's gameplay, once the meter was filled, get this, Vanessa would actually instantly transform into Vanny. I have no idea why I wasn't able to recreate this, but this is way more interesting. Now, based on one of the endings to the game, it's implied that despite having a very similar name, Vanessa and Vanny aren't the same person. But it looks like this might not always have been the case, as this scrap mechanic seems to prove otherwise. I'm personally so confused with this game's story that honestly, who knows at this point. To add to the oddities here, when blasting Vanessa with either the blaster or camera, she seemed to make weird robotic noises. Yeah, I don't know, somebody call MatPat or something. As far as this survival mode goes, assuming everything was working the way it was intended to, it honestly sounds pretty cool. It seems like this mode would have had the player going back and forth in the pizzaplex to find as many presents as they could, and would have given an awesome incentive for replayability for those interested in score or time attack runs. Almost every FNAF game has had an extra mode where you could customize difficulty and which animatronics would appear and such, so this would have been an awesome mode to have here as well. It's a real shame it was cut. At this point, with all the unused and scrapped content and ideas we've talked about, clocking it at almost 100 minutes between the 4 videos I've made, there's just about a complete second game that was scrapped here, and this is only the stuff documented so far. I also want to give a quick shout out to the contributors on the cutting room floor, as well as on the technical FNAF Discord. They were a massive help with making these videos possible. I'm sure we'll see more stuff added and removed from Security Breach in the coming months, especially if there's a DLC button basically ready to go, and when that time comes, I'll be sure to bring you guys all the details, so make sure you're subscribed to find your way back in the future. Till then though, check out my other videos in this Lost Bit series. I've made over like 100 videos now covering this stuff, so I'm sure you'll find another game in there that you'll enjoy. But as always, thank you all so much for tuning in today, and I will see you in a bit.